those folks that will be joining, I did announce that we're recording. Those folks that'll be joining won't be missing too much because it'll just take me a second to get started anyway. So welcome all. I'm excited to chat today about today's topic. Dealing with Excel and web RFPs is today's topic, and excited to chat through that a bit. In case some of you don't know me, I see a few names on the list that I'm not as familiar with. So just a quick introduction. I'm Jason, the sales guy here, speaking not the salesperson, but I head the sales group. And today's topic will be about Excel and web portal RFPs. And my last bullet of my little bio there would share with you that I'm the world's leading hater of those RFPs. So I've kind of tried to incorporate some of the advice and dealing with the pain, if you will, along the way. If you don't know, my background is all in proposal and sales process, heavily proposal oriented, which as a proposal writer, we know that means proposal champion, wrangler of the subject experts, and last leg of the relay race runner. So I really do come from a background and deal still in some ways today with dealing with, RFPs and proposals and the challenges that they create and present. Just a quick intro to the experience user groups themselves. I've got this slide from our standing deck to encourage everyone to please feel free to reach out and extend your leveraging of our user group. We've got new solutions that you're always invited to be an early adopter of. We've got an advisory board that we'd love to have your thoughts and ideas there. So please feel free to reach out to us just to apply for that process. Get started with that process. Also, if you'd like to suggest topics, or if you'd like to present on a topic, maybe you've got an area within our solution or others within just proposals and dealing with proposals and RFPs that you'd like to participate with or share with your colleagues, we would absolutely encourage you to do any and all of those things. So welcome for that. One last note on housekeeping just before I jump in to the topic at hand. Today's presentation, I'll break it into basically 3 parts. The first part is just a little PowerPoint sharing of all of these tips. And in that process, by the way, I'm happy to share this this presentation itself. So do not feel obligated to screen capture or write down every single note that you're interested in. We're happy to send you the whole presentation. If and when you have questions along the way, please just use the Q&A pane at the bottom and text your question. And if it's something that one of my colleagues can answer during the chat, they'll chat right back to you. Or if it's something that's a great topic to share with everyone, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So the first section will be the presentation. The second section, I'll actually jump into to Excel and show you these tips and show you how to bring these things to life. And the third is going to be the third area, the third section of this presentation will be just the Q&A, where we'll go through those questions we've collected along the way. So about today's topic, it's Excel and portal RFPs, and in this presentation, I'm assuming that you have no extra fancy tools. And what I mean by that is that you don't have our solution called Excel Connect right now. I do have a little plug for that in the next slide, saying, oh, by the way, we've got a software that helps these things, but these tips are just based on again, things that you can apply this afternoon on an Excel RFP or a portal RFP you're dealing with today, trying to help share ideas that solve some of the problems or challenges that, for me anyway, have oftentimes it's taken as much time to fix the darned formatting issues and other challenges that come with whatever be character counts or what have you, take as long to get the content into the darn Excel RFP format for the customer as it did to gather your content. And as I said, don't worry about notes. I'll share with you this. I'll share this presentation with you if you'd like to at the end. Shameless plug about Excel Connect. By the way, we have a tool that automates everything that I'm about to tell you with fewer clicks and easier opportunities to make this all work. It's beautifully added on to whatever you're using of ours today. So if you've got our content library tools, the portfolio and the palette, and etc., this tool works beautifully alongside of those other tools. But now let's talk about the tips. So as you would guess, as experience users, we we're fond of Word, and certainly when it comes to these RFPs, our first tip would be to let Word play that central role, taking these questionnaires into Word and allowing Word to be sort of the central figure in gathering your responses. There's a number of reasons why that recommendation exists. Certainly Word has track changes where neither the portal nor the Excel RFP would allow you to collaborate and track changes nearly in the same way with your contributors. But also having it in Word would limit some of those contributors' exposure to the actual RFP. You probably don't want them inside of the portal and logging on with your credentials and what have you, and potentially submitting, or who knows, locking answers in ways that might be problematic. Clearly, as an existing Expedience user, there's some proposal software that lives inside of Word that also comes into play. So that's awesome for you, and can allow you to leverage other things you've got in Word right now. But probably my most favorite reason why is that red squiggly line. Whenever I want to really feel horrible about myself, I copy and paste something I wrote in Excel into Word and see whatever 6 or 10 of those red squiggly lines pop up, and I realize, oh, that's right, I don't know how to spell, do I? But certainly there's some advantages of having this process centered through Word, we would say. There are also some challenges along the way in dealing with Word in this process, going back and forth. Certainly there's a challenge of collaboration, and I'll talk about ideas and share ideas on basically the tips around all of these different challenges. Excel, when you're bringing content in from Word, Excel can spill over, and I'll talk about that. And there's challenges in formatting, whether they be a paragraph spacing or bulleted lists. Tables are a challenge, images are a challenge, and then whatever the dragging and dropping of content can be also a bit of a challenge, especially when it's related to web portals. So let's just talk about each of those items, and let me share with you some practical tips. And again, all of these slides I'll share with you afterwards. The first is a very simple idea. It's just to create a template. If you're using our PDQs, this little image I have is of a PDQ where I've got little drop-down lists. It's just a simple Microsoft Word template that might capture the key details about the RFP itself. You might have due dates or assigned usernames or passwords if it were a web portal RFP. You might use highlighting, right? So my next little tab down, my next little section or table within that example template I have on the right would show that I've got a little a simple little chart that would capture who's assigned which colors within this document itself to allow me to do very simple assignments and collaboration from within this document. So again, as simple as that might be, starting with a standing template that you would use is an easy way to really facilitate collaboration within this Microsoft Word document that we bring those questionnaires in from the web or from the Excel RFP. The next tip is around pasting from Word. That's actually backwards. Pasting into Word from Excel. I just read it backwards. It was written correctly. There's challenges here, right? So we would first recommend that the page orientation of the Microsoft Word document would be switched to landscape. And then you would only copy over from the Excel RFP those relevant columns. Sometimes I'm sure you've seen them where they've got a dozen columns where they're doing ratings and weightings and collecting what have you, different questions in different sections. To pull over just that column where the questions are at, and just that column or those columns that the questions or answers are required is our recommendation here, so that you can really streamline for your contributors what the asks are and what the content is required. And the last tip here is to paste this in from Excel as a table, because that'll give us a little bit more of that orientation, as well as just organizing it like the Excel spreadsheet is, to make it a little easier when it comes time to pushing all of these answers back in to the Excel spreadsheet. When you're pasting in from the portal into web, it's a little different. We'd recommend here pasting as text as opposed to pasting as a table. In these scenarios, leaving it portrait or landscape, whichever your content best plays, is perfectly fine. Again, this little table at the top that I'm showing you with just capturing what the company, the issuing company of the RFP is, their URL of the RFP itself, their usernames or credentials or passwords. If you wanted to make that again more widely available, you could certainly have that as part of your standing template that you're pasting in from the portal as well. But now is really where all the challenges that we've all dealt with really creep into play, right? When it comes time to now getting those collected answers and content back in to Excel or back into the web, that's where the challenges are. And I think this little silly branding and restrictions and deadlines, oh my, and that really, it really is it, right? That Excel has some silly games that customers can play with their RFPs, whether they be character counts or locking cells or what have you. And now you've got the pressures of the deadlines on top of everything. It's just a real nightmare for a lot of us. So let's talk about the challenges when it comes to copying and paste in from Word back into that Excel RFP or to the web RFP. Really a lot of formatting is lost along the way, right? So in that copy and paste, tabs and indents are removed, paragraph spacing is removed, bullets can get broken or replaced or just ugly. Images are gone. Fonts take on the formatting of a cell in Excel, and that sometimes can be problematic or inconsistent for the content that you have, or maybe not how you'd like to present your content, right? And so these challenges are really can be quite problematic along the way. The first challenge, let's talk about more is this spillover idea. What does that mean? Well, spillover, and I'll show you all of these here. I'll show you this one specifically when we get into the examples about pasting in versus pasting on. What that means is when you're pasting in an Excel spreadsheet, if you simply grab content in Word and clicked over into Excel and hit paste, right, and just clicked once within the cell, it'll just drop all of that content in. The nice thing about pasting on is that it preserved all of the formatting or much of the formatting from the Word document that you pasted from. However, as it shows you that it spills over, meaning each of those different rows throughout that answer, where it says Bigco excels in and the next is innovation, those probably were all separate questions. We don't probably want that content to flow over or spill over multiple cells. But pasting in, however, when you double click within a cell and drop that content directly into that cell is awesome, but then it loses all of the formatting and the spacing. That's where some of these other challenges start creeping in. And again, I'll show you exactly paste in versus paste on in an Excel spreadsheet here in a moment. This is probably my biggest frustration along the way when I've pasted in my bulleted list where I had these beautiful points that I wanted to call out separately. And I wanted to ensure that the recipient of this RFP read these all correctly. A lot of times it breaks the bullets. So it's two different ideas, or two different ways that I'll show you in how to deal with bullets. There's a hard way and an easy way. The hard way is after you've dropped that content directly into the Excel, after you've done that paste in and it's all now correctly in that cell directly, you can go one by one throughout each of those bullets and replace the broken ugly bullet with a symbol. Within the symbol dialog box, you could grab a bullet symbol and click or something that looks like a bullet and click the insert button, and then one by one fix each of those bullets. I say it's the hard way because obviously it's a lot of one by ones that I just described. The easy way would be to deal with it in Word before you bring it back over into Excel. And I'll show you that as well here, but the idea will be this. I'll show you this in Word and dropping it into Excel. The process, more for your notes than anything right now, is that we'll define a new multi-level list and change and create a new bullet and change that format of that bullet from a font that has an ugly, unsupported bullet, wingdings, to a font that has a more standardized bullet in Arial, right? So I'll show you exactly how to do that. It's really an easy process. Another challenge you might see is when you're copying and pasting in from Word into Excel, where you had all those beautiful separated paragraphs in Word because of Word's paragraph mark capabilities. When you dropped it into Excel, it was all one big blob of text, ugly, right? And then we have to manually double click into that and hit the carriage return a bunch of times to try to separate out that content, or actually hitting Alt and carriage return right? To separate that content. So it's a real problem. So the idea here would be, again, let's fix it in Word before we bring it over. The tip is that let's fix it in Word before we bring it into Excel or the web, so that we've got an actual carriage return or paragraph mark between each of those paragraphs that you'd like to have separated. And I'll show you that. Simple way here is we'll simply replace the paragraph spacing to 0. So in Word, it'll all crunch up like we would expect it to look. And then we'll do a find and replace so that it replaces the single paragraph mark with a double paragraph mark. And I'll show you that again as well. When it comes to images, to putting images in Excel, this is the one area where our recommendation is consistently throughout always to paste in, paste in, paste in, so it's contained within the cell. With images, we have to paste on the cell. We have to drop that content in a way that it preserves that image itself. It creates other challenges, but the first recommendation that we would provide for you here is that when you're pasting an image on within the formatting pane, and I'll show you this inside of Excel, we'll want to make sure that that's marked to have the properties set to move but not size with the cell. The idea being, if our Excel spreadsheet at the end of the day, the customer may very well grab our responses and stack them next to others. We want to make sure that that image that we've pasted on is preserved with that answer. And again, so that's what's important. This property is set to move but don't size with the cell. The other thing that's important here, and I kind of mentioned this quickly when I was thinking about manually spacing out those sections within the content itself, the paragraphs, is the idea of holding Alt down while pressing Enter. It sounds like a very simple tip, but a lot of folks I've learned haven't yet discovered this one, where when you're wanting to add white space, whether that be again manually spacing out paragraphs, or in this example, I'm more thinking around an image where I may want to create some white space within that cell, where I want to drop in my image of that little flow chart or that little screenshot or whatever my little image graphic might be that I want to drop into that cell and paste on. Before I paste that on, if I go within that cell by double clicking into the cell and then holding down the Alt key and striking the carriage return or the Enter key a number of times, it'll give you some white space to drop that image in. Again, I'll show you that here in just a second. When it comes time to dealing with images on a portal-driven RFP, the recommendation is a little different. Our recommendation would be that Word document where you've staged all of your answers and you have images and items that are in the Word document itself that you'd like to ultimately be a part of your response, that each of those images might be saved as an image separately. And our recommendation here would be to save it as a name that made it explicitly clear to you and to the receiver where this content fits. So my example here might be this particular image is in question 7 methodology, that my JPEG or my whatever the image format I'm choosing to save this this item is, save it as that really easily identifying kind of a name. When it comes time to upload those images, clearly you'll deal with it in 2 separate kind of processes in the portal. You'll answer all of the questions with the text. Sometimes some of the Ariba portals or whatnot would allow us to bring an attachment per question, or sometimes those are done all at the end or in a separate section of the RFP. So obviously the images will have to be uploaded separately from the answers themselves. So you go through and we'll paste in all the answers or drag and drop in all of the answers and then upload each of those images individually or separately. I did want to share a quick note. I've become more aware of a solution called InHub. So when you're responding to some particular portal-driven RFPs, in this case, InHub's RFPs, they'll actually allow you to take the entire Word document. We've done some testing with them that expedience-driven documents and RFP responses are very nicely supported within InHub as well, with taking it all in as a document. So quick shout out for them as if you deal with one of theirs, hey, just save that RFP, save that Word document and upload the whole darn thing, because that might allow you to provide a little more context. Regarding tables, how do we deal with tables? Because we know that table, when it comes back into Excel or into the web portal RFP, won't be supported. So the first idea here would be for tables to convert the table to an image. You can just use like Snagit or do another screen capture tool or a snipping tool where you snip your table itself, and again save it as a picture and either again paste it on if it was in Excel, or to upload it separately into the portal. Another thing to think about is another approach when it comes to table would be to convert the table to a text. Convert the table to text. Let's say the right way of saying that, and I'll show you how to do that. But our recommendation here would be within the layout section of the table itself. There's a symbol button that says convert to text. You'll be able to define a separator like a dash or a space or a pipe, and then you'll simply kind of manually align these to make it look more like columns. But again, represent that table as text itself. And again, I'll show you that. This is a visual of this, again, more for your notes, but by clicking within that table of that chart over the table on the left-hand side that's showing all those different modules and counts, whatever they might include, right? I could then go to the layout tab of Word and simply choose the convert to text option. In this case, I've chosen other, and I've inserted the pipe, and you'll see the result is on the right-hand side, where it's taken that text that was contained within a table and now flattened it into text only, which then I could use if I chose to space it out a little bit so it looked a little bit more aligned and proper. That's easily done as well. I'll show you that as well back here in a second as we get into the actual live examples. The last thing to talk about for now is the character counts. It's pretty simple, but just worth mentioning that obviously in both, but more commonly in Excel, the customers that issue the RFP will have a character count in that our response cannot exceed. So a couple of ways of doing that. You can simply select text and get to the character count of that text using the word count option here, right? Or the other option, I think probably the better way or the quicker way is to simply turn it on always. And I'll show you this exactly. It's just by right-clicking at the bottom of Word in the status bar, there's an option that says character count, drop in the character count, and then real time within the document itself, it'll show you overall all the characters, or you could make a selection of this answer and visually see right then how many characters are in your response. This is sort of a kind of a bonus tip is when dealing with moving the content back into either into Excel or into to the Excel RFP, the issuing RFP itself, or the portal where the content has to go. There's a really awesome approach now with Windows that you can snap snap multiple windows into one monitor in a way that it makes the dragging and dropping or the copying and pasting easier. I'll show you this, but the idea is that at the top of the kind of top title bar, or whatever you call that, top status, I don't know, it's not a status bar, I think it's called a title bar at the top of the window, right? You grab that title bar and drag it off to the right-hand side or the left-hand side of the screen, and it nicely divides the screen in half. You can also do that using keyboard shortcuts as well, by using the Windows key at the bottom left of your screen, and then using the left or right key or the up and down key to snap that. And again, I'll show you all of these right here. What it looks like is this, where I've snapped my Word document, where we've nicely staged all of our answers that are ready to go back in to that portal RFP, and we can then again copy and paste or drag and drop directly in. And by the way, when it comes to dealing with Excel or dealing with the web portal, when I say copy and paste versus drag and drop, in Excel, our recommendation is going to be that when you're doing that side-by-side copying and pasting and filling out each of those questions, of course, we'll be pasting in with the answers themselves or on for the pictures. With the web portal, however, our recommendation is to drag and drop. And I'm going to show you all of those things right now. So let's just talk about and see each of these items in a way that hopefully will make this connect a little better than even the walkthrough and describing all of these upfront did. So here's the first example, the first idea. I want to talk about this, show you the spillover problems, right? So here's an answer that I've got nicely prepared and ready to go back in to my customer's RFP, right? And so I've simply right-clicked, I've Control C, I've copied that content. Here's their web portal RFP back over here. And if I simply click once and paste that content, that's that spillover problem I was describing earlier. I'm sure we've all seen it, where again, they have different questions throughout this Excel spreadsheet, but my answer, while nicely formatted with my bullets like I'd like them to look, aren't contained within one cell. That's that spillover problem. So that was pasting on and the problems of pasting on. I'm just going to Control Z, and now if I double click and again Control V, that's pasting in. You'll see now all that content's contained within the one cell, but here we go again, right? Those are the ugly, maybe if I zoom out, maybe I'll zoom back out. Maybe that was too far. But I hope you can see these bullets are not what I would call pretty, the little question marks in a box, right? And that's problematic in different ways. So let's start unpacking that a little bit and talk about bullets. So let me show you, oops, undo. Yeah, I hope I can undo. Well, maybe I'll just hit the delete key. I don't know why my undo is not making me happy. My little idea of zooming really is creating a little problem for me. Okay, so let's talk about bullets the easy way. So here I've got bullets. We just saw them pasted in like our recommendation was, but they were ugly. So I want to fix them instead of doing them one by one within that was the hard way I was talking about within that Excel spreadsheet. The easy way would be right here from within Word. I could define a new multi-level list that deals with and creates now bullets that'll be more nicely supported. So my first option is to grab that section. I said define a new multi-level list. I'll then come down to the bottom of these options and say what I want to do is to define a new bullet. First problem to deal with is, this is in wingdings. That's part of our problem. Let's choose aerial. And then from this top right-hand side, the subset, we want to choose geometric shapes. And there's a bullet looking shape that I would like to use. So I'll say, okay. And okay, and just that nicely, we now have a very beautifully defined bullet that when I now grab this content, and again, I'll Control C to copy it and go back in, I'll double click to paste in and paste in this result, that now these bullets look a little nicer, look a little bit more like we would want, like we think they should, and that we'd like to present to our customer. So that's bullets and spilling over and pasting in and pasting on all in one fell swoop. Let's talk about paragraph spacing and the problems that it causes. Again, just to show you the first time, here's our nicely staged answer. And this time I'll just let you see me hit copy instead of doing it on the keyboard. And again, I'll double click and paste in. But then again, what was beautifully formatted over there with separate paragraphs, here's dropped in as one big blob of text in a way that doesn't look great. If I wanted to fix this manually, clearly I can double click, hold down the Alt key and the carriage return key and add spacing manually. Again, I'm gonna do it again. I move the cursor down, Alt and carriage return. Not killer, right? But it does take a little bit of time, and to do it one by one across all of these answers in the RFP could really, again, be problem forming for us or time consuming if nothing else. So again, let's deal with that problem over here in Word. We could even deal with this across the whole darn document at one time here inside of Word in a way that's really more effective. So I'm going to start by dealing with this like I was showing you back in that document by saying I want to create spacing and set my spacing down to 0. So that's what it looked like over there, back there in Excel, doesn't it? But now let's fix the problem of having a carriage return. And again, with these three, I could just manually click, 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 and hit carriage return and fix the problem like this. But again, assuming we wanted to deal with this more holistically across the RFP, it might be better to do a different approach. Let me show you the approach. I'm gonna hit Control F for find. And I'm going to choose this option to say find and replace. Let's grab that whole piece of content. I'm going to get rid of this. What I wanted to find instead, if I click the more button and then click the special key, I wanted to find any paragraph mark. And what I want to replace it with is 2 paragraph marks. And so this stupid simple approach will allow us to say, let's replace all. And it says, hey, that section, I won't ask you to do the rest of the document because it's not relevant for me right now. But now look what it's done for us, and could have done that in a much wider section across this document itself. It's taken those 3 paragraphs and spaced them out quite nicely for us. So I could now grab these questions. Again, I'll Control C. I'll double click to jump to paste in and paste that answer directly within that cell where I want the content to be contained. So again, in both scenarios, we feel like you're better served by just staging and dealing with staging the content the way we would like it to appear in the portal or on the Excel spreadsheet. Dealing with that over there in Word, and then again manually, as opposed to manually doing it within Excel itself. So let's talk about images and the process, the challenges that they create. So here's an answer that we have staged. Let me get rid of this navigation pane. Here's an answer we have staged that has a chunk of text and also an image that I wanted to bring in. I don't know why I allowed this example to stay across 2. Let's move this down so we can see this all together. Right, here we are. Here's a piece of text and an image, and I want all of this to go in to the Excel RFP. Now, we know that, again, this is sort of a 2-stage process. The first stage will be I want to take the text alone. And this is where, again, I want to stick with my same process of pasting in. So I've hit Control C to grab that text. I'm going to go back into the questionnaire. If I double click and paste that answer directly into the RFP, great, wonderful. But now I want that image brought in, and I've got to paste this on. If I do it right now, if I paste on, literally I'll paste it right on top of the text, and that's problematic. So when I was talking about the idea of holding down the Alt key and pressing carriage return a handful of times, I don't know how many times, depending on how big your image is, right, to give yourself a little white space. And now when I grab this image, I'll say Control C for the image, and I'm not going to double click to paste in. I'm just going to single click and paste on that image. It's a floating object now in Excel, so so that's something to be dealt with. But the first thing that I can see, and the nice thing, is that the image is appearing, and it's in that box itself. But wait a second, remember what I said? We want to make sure that as the customer ultimately grabs our whole column and moves things around, that this image doesn't get displaced or somehow mishandled, right? So if I click on that image and go to this picture format option, and then within picture format, do I right click? I never remember how to do these things until I do them wrong the first time. Sorry, let me do that again differently. I'm going to right click, and that's the option, right? And choose this format picture. And then the option that I want to point you to, now that Jason remembers what he's talking about, is this option here that says properties and size and properties. One of those properties that I want to use is this move but don't size with cells. That's the important one that I wanted to make sure that I've called out as something to make sure that we've associated with this image. So again, it sticks around, as the client may very well move these cells back and forth, right? So apologies for my slow recall there, but again, within Excel itself, it's a right click and format picture. It's right there, that little middle option right there, and that move but don't size with cells is what you'll want to make sure that you have listed for this image. So now I've got, again, a representation. It's not as pretty as it was in Word, but at least it's effective, right? It's the content and the image all kind of self-contained in a nice way within that Excel spreadsheet. So the next thing to talk about are tables. Again, I could show you first by grabbing this table and trying to paste it in, but again, they just create lots of problems. So a couple of different options. Certainly we could use, I use Snagit here, right? So I could go grab a Snagit and make an image of this table, and again, deal with it the exact same way I did the image a moment ago. The problem with images, though, especially in this setting, if the customer's doing any finding and replacing, the image loses that, right? They don't have find and replace, and the find and replace, I'm sorry, not replace, but the find option. If they're doing any kind of searching within the Excel spreadsheet or even within the portal, that text has been flattened to an image in a way that it's not searchable, right? And so sometimes I would prefer, not sometimes, my general preference is to convert this table to text. So if I just click in the table itself, I don't have to select the whole thing I was doing. I simply click in the table. You will see this this layout option appears, or table design, or layout option appears. Layout option appears, and right here, this option says convert to text. It's as simple as that. It's simply clicking on the table, choosing this convert to text. I recommend using the pipe, and that's that little symbol right above the enter key that I have selected here. And I'll say okay, and you'll see it just flattened again that text, although that table all down to text. I now am in a great spot that if I wanted to space this out and make this look something like, I don't know, like this, maybe let's make these little bars, my little separator column. And obviously I didn't bring these out far enough because of the other item down here regardless, but you'll get the idea. I don't want to have you waste your time with me trying to make this line up and look prettier, but that's the idea, that I could certainly, well, that's ugly, right? So let's make it look a little better. So there we go. I'll just give up quickly and say fabulous. This is Jason's too quick to be pretty version of making something that kind of looks more like that table did a second ago, right? You get the idea that clearly using a separator might help you sort of stage this content nicely. Well, gosh, now I'm too darn close to not do it, right? So fine, here we go. So fabulous. I've now taken content that was in a table, and I've now flattened it to text, which is still searchable. But that text now kind of looks more like my table did. So I can just grab that text itself. I'll Control C, and then back here within the Excel RFP where that text fits, if I double click and paste in, that content looks, again, not as beautiful as it did in Word, but not bad, right? More like that table did, where it represents those options in a way, or those elements in a way that's more visually obvious for the customer. So that's the idea around tables. I could have converted to images and dealt with it just like I did here, or in this case, I've converted to text and spent way too much of your time dealing with pipes and spacing to make it look okay. So talking about character counts and how those can be dealt with. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, let's not assume anything, right? That if I simply select content and then I can right click and say, I want to, oh no, sorry about this. So I could select content and say review and say word count, right? And this will tell me my character count. I get myself confused with our Excel Connect tool when we've brought that into the right click, but apologies for this. I have to remember non-Excel Connect ways of doing things sometimes. So again, I've just selected the text, went to the review tab, and the word count option will show me how many characters. So if I know this answer is limited to 500 characters or whatever that character restriction might be, I'll know exactly how many characters I have with spaces to know if I meet that requirement. A better way, or I think a better way of dealing with this, is to actually add it directly to your toolbar. So without having it even selected, I could simply right-click the bottom of my status bar within Word and choose this character count with spaces option, right? So now when I've clicked it, you'll see it's added that 3114 of the overall document characters right now, or I could grab that answer and right there on the fly it says, oh, it's 646 of that 3,114 characters. This was 646 characters all in, right? So it's kind of a more real-time way of quickly determining, oh, it's 230 characters. That should be fine. Or even this item with this item, if I brought that all together, oh, it's 500 characters, etc. Right? So that's a quick way of visually seeing simply right here within the Word status bar itself by simply adding the character count directly. So those are the big things. The last time I had that bonus tip I was talking about was the snapping and how to deal with getting content in back to the Excel RFPs or to the portal RFPs from this Word table. I just hit the carriage return to kind of move these items down into one spot because I want to show you this in one way that hopefully is pretty awesome. So here's the idea behind snapping. This is how it works. If I grab this Word document or this window, and by the way, it works beyond just Word, but if I grab this Word and say I want to pull this off the side, so I grabbed it from the top and pulled it off the side, you'll see that it took that entire document now and pasted it on, or kind of contained it within the left-hand side of the the monitor, of the window itself, the actual monitor itself, right? And these other options that are up right now are the other documents, other applications that I have live within this PC on my computer right now. So I can go back to selecting that Excel RFP, and now you'll see it's kind of stacked up together. My Word document here to the left and my Excel RFP here to the right that I'm trying to now complete. So again, dealing with or recommendations here when it comes to pasting the content from Word into Excel. Of course, when that's a paste in, but check this out. I can now kind of do it quite easily because it's kind of visually aligned. I'm just going to grab that content. I'm going to Control C. Again, I'm going to double click within where I want that answer to go and Control V and drop that answer directly in to this Excel RFP. The other option that I had is, let's just go back and make this big. I'm going to show you the portal idea because the other one of the items I've got up is a very faked out portal-driven RFP, and this is my question and answer. Here, instead of having to paste in, I could do this. I could simply grab the content and drag it and drop it where it goes within the portal RFP. So again, if you could envision your Word document with the answers 1 through whatever on the left-hand side, and my portal RFP with answers again 1 through whatever, it makes it an easier process to make sure that I quickly align the right answers to the right sections within that portal RFP itself. So those are my tips and tricks for dealing with Excel and portal-driven RFPs. I think that we've had a couple of questions that have already come through. Before I say thank you, I'm gonna come back over here and just say, leave this up for a moment, and then I'm going to jump back over into the question and answer pane to see if I can't answer some of these questions. If I don't get to your question now and you'd like to reach out to me separately, please absolutely feel free to do so. Obviously my email address is here on the screen. This is my shortened email address. Feel free to use. I'm trying to read the question and make it make sense before I restate it and hopefully answer the question. Clicking on the cell question. So this question's in context of what I was doing at that moment, and it's regarding the copying and pasting, or the dealing with the question back in to Excel. And I'm so sorry, I don't exactly understand the context that I was in, but maybe we could chat about this separately, Sydney, to figure out if I can't show you exactly what I was doing there. Apologies. I'm keen to answer your question. I just don't think I quite understand the setting that I was dealing with within that scenario. But certainly that's pretty important. I want to make sure I get the question thought through. Another question is around styles, around creating styles, and there is an approach that you could do around when I did that multi-level list and defined that kind of manually within this. One question's around: is it possible to set up a style that would help make that more automatic? And that's absolutely possible, and one that I've seen customers do and quite happily have nice results as well there as well. So certainly that is an option. So let me answer that one to say, yes, that's a great idea to do. There's also other approaches. One of the customers asked about regarding when I changed the font and dealing with the table and the aligning of the table. You saw it probably wasn't exactly perfect, even though I was really sloppy and doing it on the fly here within the context of this webinar. But another idea would be to make that a little bit more easily aligned, would be to use a font that was equidistant or equispaced fonts. I'm sorry, I don't remember that phrasing of what that idea is, where each character is like old typewriter style, where every character takes the same width. And it's a good point. That certainly would allow that table to align more directly. Let's just see. I've got now an update from the original question. Okay, Great question. Thank you. Now, thank you very much, Sydney, for the definition. So yeah, right. I've dealt with this too. She's asked the question around when you're pasting the content into Excel. Wait a second. Sometimes the customer does us the really friendly of leaving that column width of the Excel spreadsheet really narrow, and when we paste, it gets super tall and creates other problems for us and for them visually. And I had no was the short answer to your question. Did it happen automatically? Does it automatically do that alignment? It does not. So what I did right before this to stage my little thing is I grabbed the column where that question goes and I manually pulled it over. And again, depending on how they lock and what they do with that Excel spreadsheet, that can create challenges for us. But my first thing would be exactly that, by manually giving myself more kind of more left to right room. So when I paste that text in and that long answer in, it doesn't do so in an ugly way. So those are all the questions I can quickly, at least as I'm reading through a couple of the thoughts here, I don't know how to best answer those here. So certainly I encourage everyone to simply reach out to me personally. I'd love to chat about these. As much as I hate Excel RFPs, I'll tell you, I do enjoy chatting about them. I'm also, again, just for the let me be the salesperson for a second to say, really happy to show you how Excel Connect could solve these problems in a way that is such an automated, easier way of dealing with it. But certainly they made me promise, hey, these are user group meetings are not Jason, don't be Jason the salesperson, just be Jason the proposal person. And I'm happy to stay in that form, but certainly happy to dig in deeper with any of these questions you might have on these tips. Happy to send you my presentation. Shoot me an email, send me all of the folks that you'd like to share. I'm happy to send along to everyone within your organization that you'd like to have this presentation. We'll make the recording available afterwards as well, so you'll have that. And as always, feel free to reach out to me directly and or any of your favorite people to talk to here at Expedience, and we're all happy to help. So with that, I'll say thank you and give you back the 10 minutes left of your hour. It's always a pleasure to chat, and happy to chat further. If you've got any ideas on this that you'd like to share with me, please feel free to do. If you've got other tips you'd like me to add to this presentation for the next go, please shoot them my way. I'd love to hear them and include them in the future. But with that, we'll close today's webinar out, and I look forward to chatting with everyone very soon. Thanks, folks.